I'm Louisa from the Little Language School here in Saint-Junien, and I'm your French teacher on New Life in France. Today we're going to be looking at greetings and how you're going to be saying hello to people when you are maybe in a shop or maybe you're seeing your neighbours over the fence. And we'll also add in a little bit on how you are going to say goodbye to them after you've had your conversation, and maybe also a little bit about how you're going to be asking each other how you are and how to respond to that.
As you know, the standard greeting in France is to say bonjour. Bonjour is literally good, bonjour, day. After about 5-ish, kind of depending on the time of year, how dark it is outside and when people realise it's kind of getting towards evening time, it changes from bonjour to bonsoir. Bonsoir, so bon, good, soir, evening. There is no other bon to say good anything in French, as in good morning, good afternoon, like we have in English. It's only bonjour if it's during the daytime, or bonsoir if it's getting to evening time. Something important culturally is to always start any interaction that you have in France with a hello. Even if it's just, popping up to the local cafe and asking for a coffee. Excuse me, can I have a coffee please? Always start with a bonjour. Could I have a coffee please? Or you might be in the supermarket looking for the milk or something. You should always start with bonjour when you're seeing that person that's going to help you try and find your milk, and then ask them where it might be, whatever. So always start your interaction with a hello. There are a couple of other options of saying hello which are more informal. So there's salut. Salut is kind of a hi, you might say that to your neighbour over the fence, or a friend that you see in town or whatever. So salut. And the third option is really informal. It's coucou. And coucou is what you might say to a child if they're playing peekaboo or something, and say coucou. Or it's kind of it's just a cute little kind of cooey sort of noise. So coucou, very informal coucou. It's still really common and polite to say bonjour and then say monsieur afterwards if it's somebody that you don't know, as a starting kind of greeting. So bonjour monsieur. Monsieur can be tricky to pronounce. Doesn't look really like how it's spelled. So monsieur. And then bonjour madame. Obviously if it's a woman. Bonjour madame. If you've seen somebody twice in one day, there is a word for that, which is to say re-bonjour when you see that person, which is kind of our equivalent of hello again. Re-bonjour. The re is kind of an e sound, like in the number 2 in French. Un, deux. It's that e sound. Be careful not to make it sound like the English re. It's re-bonjour and re-bonsoir if you see them twice in one evening. One of my students told me a story that they hadn't said this to somebody, and the person said, well, you've just seen me, it's me, we've just seen each other. And they thought that they'd actually forgotten that they'd seen them already, 10 minutes earlier. So re-bonjour is if you see them for a second time in one day. Ça va is the way that you would ask somebody how they are. So ça va literally means it's going, it goes. It's kind of asking, how's it going? Ça va? You put the question in your voice by putting your tone up, your intonation up at the end. So ça va? And the answer can quite simply just be ça va. The same words repeated, but just with a different intonation. Ça va? How's it going? It's going. Ça va? You could also say ça va bien, which is it's going well, I'm fine. Ça va bien. But just ça va is fine. But you're going to want to ask and you afterwards. It's the polite thing to do. Somebody asks you how you are, to then say, I'm fine, thanks, and how about you? So in French, we've got two options when we're asking somebody back, how about you? The first option is saying, et toi? Et toi? Ça va? Ça va? Et toi? And the second option is to say, et vous? Ça va? Ça va? Et vous? So you might be thinking, well, which one am I supposed to use? How am I supposed to know whether I'm supposed to say et toi or et vous? Because they both mean and you. As you may well know, there are two different ways to say you in French. There's the you that you use when you are talking to somebody that you know well, that you are being informal to, and there is a you that you use if you're showing a bit more formality or if you're speaking to more than one person. We have to be a little bit careful here because tu and vous are different words obviously for you, but when you're wanting to say and you, for the tu one, it changes to et toi. So just be careful. It's a really common mistake we make as English speakers. We say et tu, which is completely understandable because we think tu means you, but actually it's a different word. It's et toi when you want to say and you. So how can we work out when to say tu and when to say vous? Well, for tu, what you need to think is it only ever works for one single person or one single animal that you might be talking to. Okay, so tu can only ever be used as singular. And the only other time that you use tu is if you're being informal. So for any kind of pets or anything like that, you would always call them tu. For children, we always call children tu. And the other time that you call somebody tu is when it is your friend and you are being informal with them. And there comes a point when a relationship changes from vous to tu. And often one of you will say to the other, should we call each other tu now? On va se tutoyer. There's even a verb in French, tutoyer. Se tutoyer, which is to call each other tu. Or sometimes somebody will just go, oh no, they'll say, oh don't worry, just call me tu. Maybe it's come from a slip up that you've gone to say vous, but it said tu, and they say, oh no, let's just stick with tu. So at some point there will come a change from let's start being informal with each other now. My best piece of advice here is follow the lead of the French person that you're talking to. So vous then, when would you use vous? So vous we use when we're trying to show a bit more formality. So we might use vous if we were talking to, say, the mayor or somebody that you don't know. So, for example, somebody in a shop or what have you, you would call them vous. And also for the first time that you would meet a neighbour, you might call them vous. Okay, just to show, okay, I understand that there's a level of formality here because we don't know each other well yet. The other time that you use vous, and this is the one that sometimes people forget, is that vous is used for plural, okay? And plural, no matter if it's your absolute best friends in the world, as soon as there's more than one of them, you call them vous as a collective. And same with children. Even though we call individual children tu, as soon as there's more than one, you call them as a collective vous. It's almost like in English when you say you all or you both. That's what vous is doing here when we're speaking to more than one person. So we've got ça va, et toi, if you're talking to one person that you know well, or a child or a dog, or ça va, et vous, if you're talking to somebody that you don't know so well or you're talking to more than one person. Now you've finished your conversation and very likely there will be a bit of a have a good day, a little comment at the end. So we've got a few options here that you often hear. So bonjourné. So jour, we can see jour in here, so that's back to that word day again. So bonjourné is have a good day. Have a good day. It's a slightly different word from the word jour, and this is because we're talking about have a good daytime, enjoy what you're doing in that time. So it's got a slightly different connotation to it. So bonne journée, bonne soirée is the other one that you often hear. Have a good evening, bonne soirée. Bon weekend, and there's lots of other bon or bonnes as well that you'll hear. Bonne fin de is another one that you often hear, which is have a good end of whatever it might be. So bonne fin d'après-midi, have a good end of afternoon. So lots of different ways that you will kind of sign off in a enjoy the rest of your whatever it might be. In terms of answering this, you can just literally, as easy as repeating it back. So, bonne journée, and that's it. Bonne soirée, and off you go. So you can repeat the words, completely repeat it. Have a good day, and off you go. There's another way that you can do it. Well, there's a few different ways that you can say it. But another way that's quite an easy way to remember, I think, is to say pareillement. I've put here the phonetic sound spelling of it as well, so that you can hear how it, or you can read how it sounds. So pareillement, think about parallel. It's like it's parallel, like I want it to be the same as you. It's almost like saying likewise in English. Pareillement. So whichever one of those you feel most comfortable with, have a practice. Pareillement, or just repeating it back, bonne journée. You can also say and you too, et vous aussi, if you want to use that. But pareillement is a really straightforward one as long as it sticks in your head. And lastly, we're going to say goodbye. So the most common way of saying goodbye is just saying au revoir, until until we see each other again. Au revoir. When French people say this, it sometimes sounds super quick and it sounds like au revoir. Oh, you can hardly hear half of the letters in it. Au revoir. But that's the way to say goodbye. Au revoir. If you know that you're going to be seeing the person a bit later, you can say à plus tard. And sometimes they even shorten it just to à plus. So à plus tard means until. À is like till, to, and then plus means more, and then tard is late, like later, like we've got the word tardiness, haven't we, in English, to mean lateness. So tard is late, so à plus tard, see you later. To more late, see you later. À plus tard. And we've also got à bientôt. À bientôt is see you soon. So we know we're not going to see them that day, probably, but we're going to see them soon. So à bientôt. But au revoir is the one that we would use as a kind of standard one for most people, that unless we're going to be definitely seeing them later or definitely seeing them soon. So au revoir, à plus tard, or à bientôt. And here's a little recap for you. So, remember, bonjour only, not any other bon. Bonjour only until around 5ish, when it becomes bonsoir. You can say salut or coucou, but it is more informal, especially coucou. It's polite still to say bonjour madame or bonjour monsieur after bonjour, bonsoir. If you see someone twice in one day or one evening, have a go at saying re-bonjour or re-bonsoir when you see them again. Ça va can be the question and the answer for how are you. Ça va? Ça va. When you want to ask them back and you after ça va, think about who you're talking to and choose either et toi or et vous, depending on whether there's somebody that you're informal with or somebody that you don't know quite so well yet. Expect a bonne journée or bonne soirée when you're leaving a shop or when you're finishing a conversation, And you can either just copy that phrase back or have a go at saying pareillement, pareillement. And lastly, when you're saying goodbye, you can say au revoir, or if you're planning on seeing that person later, à plus tard, or if you know you'll see that person soon, à bientôt.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that today. I hope you found something in that helped you. Every week we will be bringing something different for all different levels of learner, so keep tuned. And you will find, if you look in the link below, that there is a link for a free download that you can click on there, and you will get a cheat sheet directly to your inbox. See you next time. Au revoir.